Nerdware. That's better. Howdy, friends. With the passage of the recent ballot measure in North Carolina and both Vice President Biden and President Obama's remarks on marriage equality, gay marriage, a lot of people are terming it different things. Due to those things, the internet has been booming, YouTube specifically, about this subject. So being a member of the queer community for the last 14 and a half or so years, and the fact that it's the button issue right now, I figured I would also add my voice to all of the discussions that are being had. What I want to talk about is some of the arguments that I have personally heard a good number of times against marriage equality in a segment that I'd like to call I Call Bullshit. So one of the arguments that I hear almost constantly is that gay marriage or the notion of marriage equality will threaten the sanctity of marriage. I call bullshit. There's truly two sides to this that I hear from different people. Some people take one, some people take the other. The first is basically that it would threaten the sanctity of marriage as a whole, as an idea. In which case, all I can say is, how can you speak to what sanctifies all marriages? And quite honestly, I find it extremely sophomoric for any one person or even a group of people to think that they can define what sanctifies all marriages. The other argument that I've heard is that it would threaten their marriage specifically. And as a married person, I gotta tell you that your marriage is not threatened by a family member's marriage, your neighbor's marriage, Kim Kardashian's marriage, Britney Spears, one of her many marriages. None of those threaten your marriage any more or less than a woman marrying a woman or a man marrying a man. Other people don't threaten the sanctity of your marriage. The only person that can threaten the sanctity of your marriage is the two people in that marriage. The sanctity of your marriage is threatened by non-communication, dishonesty, distrustfulness, and keeping your pants on around people that you shouldn't be sleeping with. Another argument or justification for not allowing same-sex couples to get married is that civil unions are the same or enough. And I call bullshit. Brown versus Board of Education stated that separate but equal is not equal. It is inherently unequal. A situation like that sets up an other type of situation, or an us versus them. Setting someone or a group of people aside and placing them in another category, even if that category is essentially equal, is discrimination. Not long ago, there were white versus colored water fountains. The water fountains were identical in nature, save who was allowed to drink from them. Discrimination. Now that of course assumes that these two situations of civil union and marriage are even equal on their merits. Let me assure you, they are not. There are over 1,300 federal rights and benefits that are granted to married couples. They actually use the word married in these laws, not unioned, meaning that civil unions don't qualify. That's over 1,300 reasons that civil unions are not the same as marriages. Unless every one of those policies has their language changed, these two aren't equal. And even if we went through all that to change the language of all of these different laws and policies, well, then we're just back to two identical water fountains. Opposite-sex couples at one, and everyone else at the other. The final justification that I have heard quite a lot lately for not granting marriage rights to all couples, particularly after President Obama came out and said that he supports marriage equality, was that, you know, that's really great and all, but shouldn't we really just be focused on the economy? I call bullshit. Besides being a nice mask to continue to deny basic rights under the guise of this is more important, let's remember that there's more than one eye on the stove. Granting basic civil liberties doesn't mean that every other piece of legislation is put on hold or thrown by the wayside. The government can do more than one thing at a time, but that's a discussion for another day. Back to the economy argument. There have been several studies that have actually proven that granting full marriage equality actually boosts the economy. The Williams Institute released reports showing that the Massachusetts economy had an over $100 million boom to their economy after granting full marriage rights. For Iowa, over $13 million in 1 year. For Illinois, 39 to 72 million over 3 years. And in New Jersey, $119 million over a 3-year period. There was also a recent report released estimating that Maryland will experience a similar boom of approximately $90 million. Weddings cost money, and they create jobs. Having just planned and celebrated a wedding a year ago, love you too. I can tell you that it's not always cheap. Sure, there are ways to make it cheap, but for most people, weddings involve florists, caterers, DJs, lodging, travel, venues, clothing for the bridal party, and 100 other costs that all add up. Translation, marriage equality is good for the economy. And while our economy is not nearly as bad as it was just a couple short years ago, it can always get better. There are plenty of other arguments that I could go over that I have heard over the last several years in this fight. And quite honestly, a lot of them get me pretty heated. So I'm just going to leave that to other people to fight that battle. If you actually want to have a conversation about this, I'm more than happy to have it. You can always find me on my Tumblr, my Twitter, my Facebook. All that information will be down in the free bin. In addition, I'm going to put some links to the references and studies that I mentioned earlier. Read them, don't read them, it's up to you. But I would err on the side of educating yourself before you try to make a logical argument against marriage equality. So, that's my piece. Till next time.